Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a new episode of Rocket Lab Weekly. This is episode 74. This is the earnings aftermath. Hopefully, you guys are still alive after the stock reaction that was to the earnings. So let me know in the comments how much money are you guys down, or were you down, and if you aged 10 years or not, and if you still have your portfolio and you were not margin called. So let me know in the comments. We have today Scotto with us and Matt Money. Thank you guys for being here. How was your week?
It was a blur. It was a lot of fun though. I've just been going through Rocket Lab earnings pretty much nonstop since Thursday, so it's been a lot of fun.
Cool.
Yeah, it's been fun. Definitely enjoyed so far what I saw on the fourth quarter call. Not surprised by anything that showed up, and excited that the stock is back down towards October, November levels, so I can buy a little bit more. I'm really excited about that. I've already purchased some, and I'm really just hoping. I'm been telling people I'm cash poor this month because I'm prepping to buy another property, but after that, hopefully we'll be able to, towards the middle of the month, be able to buy a little bit more. So I'm hoping that this persists for a little bit, but I don't think it will.
Dude, how many properties are you buying? It seems like you're always buying properties.
It's not important.
It's not important. How many do you have?
That's not important.
It's not important. Okay. Just remember to also buy stocks.
Always buying stocks.
That's good. Cool. So I was thinking we go through the very little news that was this week, and then we go straight into the earnings and everyone's reaction and what we see, what we didn't see. And Scotto did an amazing video just actually a few hours before this show. And we can go more into it. Looks like the mystery customer is not Amazon. And
or maybe there's more to it already. We can get
more to it already. Okay.
Yeah.
So the plot thickens. Okay, we're gonna see. So we start with the news. It's going to be very. Oh, what did I do? Okay. Here we go. So it's going to be very little this week. So we have a Varda spacecraft that has landed successfully in Australia. I don't know if you guys want to comment anything on this. If not, then we just go on to the next.
No, cool to see. This is the second capsule from Varda, and the third is set to take flight right away here. So it's a lot shorter of a time frame compared to the first one. It was in orbit like 8 months, and compared to this one was just 1 month, pretty well, right? So good news.
Yeah, awesome. Hopefully we resolve what happens with the Varda number 4 spacecraft.
Actually, there was a bit of news on that too. I think they are scheduled now, and it is indeed their craft that's going up as the 4th one. So still TBD with whatever's going on with the Rocket Lab build one, but they are sending their own for the 4th launch. So
cool. Well, all right. Then we go to the next one. This is basically that the Venus spacecraft is a little bit closer. This is the one that Rocket Lab is doing as a nights and weekends project, and they don't really get paid for this. It's basically philanthropy, and as far as we understand, it's waiting for Neutron to launch. I don't know if there's any more comments to this.
No, I'm kind of surprised they didn't mention this on the call at all. I mean, it came out just a couple hours before the call. It's strange they didn't bring it up.
I guess it has nothing to do with the company's like financials or.
Yeah. I mean, but still, it's just that like bragging rights, really. But
yeah, true story. Cool. Here's a really cool one. So, guys, we are landing on the moon in just about a few hours. So the Firefly spacecraft is completing its 45-day trip to the moon. Rocket Lab has provided the solar panels, the guidance and navigation, and I always forget what's the what's the third one. But yeah, I set up the YouTube here. It's going live. The landing is going live in 9 hours. So do you guys think they are going to stick the landing? I think it's their first one, first try. Yeah, for Firefly.
Yeah, I'm really optimistic for it. Worst case scenario, man, I'm sure that they're planning for multiple opportunities to go. And so this was launched by a Falcon 9 rocket. So to me, I think that that's always good, knowing that there's already, at least, even though it was launched by Falcon 9, the partnership going for the, as you stated, the software and some of the solar panels and some of the other equipment within the lunar lander. So that means Firefly and Rocket Lab are at least in communication. So, hey, by the middle of next year, we're open, or middle of this year, sorry, later this year, we're open for business and might be able to launch the second lunar lander if it comes to that.
Yeah. Cool. Well, all right. That was all the news this week that I thought was relevant. And I think we can go into the earnings directly. I don't know what's best. Like, should we go through the presentation and comment on different things, or do you guys want to just go over like what's your biggest takeaway, or what do you think is best?
I'm kind of on board with going through the presentation, kind of skim through and kind of stop wherever we see fit.
Yeah, sure. Matt, what do you think?
I concur.
You concur. Awesome. Okay, then we start here. So 2024 was the biggest revenue year yet. And we can see their comparisons, 26% growth from Q3 to Q4, 7 to 8% growth from last year to this year, 121% compared to last year's Q4, and 382% since they de-specced in 2021. And I mean, for me, this is the most beautiful number, the 382, because it's not just a one-time thing, but it shows that they're sustainably growing year after year. You guys can interrupt me when because I think there is like some filler slides and then some slides that are really, really important. So 2024, a year of execution. Building an end-to-end space company. So they are describing what they have done with the launch spacecraft. And I think something that didn't get a lot of attention is we basically got half of the applications announcements, sort of, because they introduced a new satellite called Flatellite. That was their official name. And they basically said that that's the platform that they were going to use for their own constellation. And I think this was way more bullish than people thought. I don't know what you guys think about this part.
Well, definitely. And even Peter even mentioned in terms of volume, I don't have it handy, but he even spoke to the production rate for these satellites. And I think, where is it here? They're expecting to build, what does that say? A couple of satellites a week, up to a satellite a day. So that's like some serious production.
That's, did they add any more color onto that? That was one of the, did they say in the Q&A? I'll have to dig through the Q&A piece.
Yeah, somebody was just, they brought up the Flatellite, the new low-cost satellite. What's your throughput expectation for that? And Peter Beck's response was the throughput of that is designed to be a couple of satellites a week, up to a satellite a day, depending on the customer or the opportunity that we go after.
Wow.
So
I don't know why I completely missed that in the Q&A.
It was near the end.
Yeah,
I think it was one of the last questions. We were getting tired. We were streaming for 2 hours at that point.
Yeah. That's insane. I mean, they didn't give any color on when, right? I mean, my anticipation is starting in 27, 28. But I've heard people, I've said that before, and people think I'm a fool. So I'm a little bit surprised. I mean, these guys know what they're doing. It's not their first satellite, not their first rodeo. I mean, I don't want to belabor that, but at the same time, it's like they make satellites all the damn time.
I think this is already. I mean, like, I think you can order this product now. Like, that was my impression. That like it's because it says somewhere else that it's a bold new move into this new direction. And I was even, and I'm still saying with the tinfoil hat on, that normally Peter Beck only does things that are ordered by the customers so they can learn from it. And then they use it for their own, like in-house, right? So I think that they are in serious talks with some customers about buying a constellation from Rocket Lab, and they pre-developed. I think. I wish we could have them in an interview. We're gonna see if we have them in an interview, but I think they probably have some pre-runs of this satellite.
But I mean, imagine what kind of pressure this puts on something like ASTS, and and the ASTS community already hates me. But think about if like Apple or AT&T or Verizon were able to now come to Rocket Lab directly and say, we want to put X amount of satellites into space. These guys probably do way more throughput and be able to launch it at a much cheaper pace because of the potential reusability of Neutron, and they're not going to be paying $70 million a pop. Like ASTS is going to pay $70 million at a minimum to get their first round of satellites into space. Because they're going to be using SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket, versus Rocket Lab is going to pay $55 million. But if it's, say, the more use of the reusability and things of the like, if the contract that they can come up with, because they are the ones that are providing the literal lift, is going to be much easier. So that the ability for them to not only turn it around much quicker, and then secondly, do it at a cheaper cost, is going to be much more flexible. But that's hypothetical, right? I mean, I don't necessarily know anything for certain, but it just goes back to having the ability to be end-to-end and have that ability to go directly to the consumer to say, hey, we're ready as soon as you are, rather than having to go through another launch provider like you would with ASTS or a different company, Black Sky even, or anybody, right? I don't want to pick specifically on ASTS.
Yeah. Did you guys catch that in the Q&A? They asked him, like, what's your competitive edge on this satellite? And then they're like, are you cheap? And then Sir Peter Beck said that it's like, we can deliver on time. Like, we can be super fast on delivering this. And he was not saying that they're cheap, but I guess it's more like, you pay them X amount of money, and then you don't have to finance your company for, because I mean, if you're a startup, like let's say you're a space startup, and it takes you 3 to 4 years to deploy your satellite, you need to finance the company, the researchers, and everything, and that's millions upon millions, if not tens of millions of dollars, right? And if you can just go to Rocket Lab and they can have a constellation, maybe not fully deployed, but up in space within a few months, that is a hell of an advantage.
Mm-hmm. I'm willing to bet that these are quite far along in development as well. I'm kind of putting grasping for straws here, but there was one image from an old Neutron presentation, and they did have like a whole I don't know what you call it, like series of those flat satellites in the Neutron's fairing. So maybe that was just a simple artist rendition of it, but maybe that was a tease of for us to look back on now and and kind of laugh about. And one other thing as well, I don't know if there's any truth to it, but there have been job postings for those, I think they're called ion thrusters, for quite a long time. And someone was hypothesizing that that's what we're going to see on these new satellites. So those job postings went up like a year or two ago. So I bet that's what this is for.
Yeah. And by the way, one more point I want to say as the armchair space engineer, that I don't think that these satellites are good for every use case. And I wish Dave Huntsman was here, or somebody else who is good on this. But when you say like ASTS, I'm not sure that this satellite alone can compete with the ASTS technology. But I think that there is some specific use cases, and if we knew what those use cases were because of engineers that are here, then we would get like a quite good direction. Like, okay, this is the direction that Rocket Lab wants to go with their own constellation. And obviously, once they announce the acquisition that they're trying to do, then we get 100%, because then they just need to slap the sensor application onto the satellite, and then they're good to go. Yeah, like Curtis is saying here, flat sat is probably not great for Earth observation. Yeah, because I think ASTS has a very big satellite, if I understand it correctly, that is very heavy and has like some special technology, right? And I think that like their point is that you don't need that many in the constellation, and you cover like a huge area with and yeah, I'm not sure that this one can directly compete with that, but this is my armchair space engineer here. Francisco, it's a communication satellite. Yeah, that's also the idea that I got when I saw it. I was like, this is very similar to Starlink. You know, you just pop them out, and yeah, so we're going to see interesting times. Cool.
Yeah, I'm curious though. It didn't seem like it's going to be for public or consumer. It seemed like more for business or defense. At least that's what they described within the presentation. But I think the reason why they may not have gone into it as much is because I don't think they would have detracted away from Neutron and the hype around that. And the last thing you want to do is you want to let people know that there is something in the works to be after Neutron. But as Peter liked to allude to, and this is something that Scott has pushed in the past, it's like, well, when are we going to do reusability for Electron and stuff like? It's like, well, they're very much at the moment like one track focus. Like they want to make sure that what they get done, what they say they're going to do, they get done as fast as possible. So I feel like if you introduce too much with respect to Flatellite, it might detract away from getting Neutron on the pad. And I think at the moment they just want to make sure, hey, let you guys know the constellation's out there, but we're focusing on Neutron.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, we go on to Electron. And now my computer doesn't want to cooperate. Okay, here we go. So Electron in 2024 had 100% mission success. There was 16 launches. This is a 60% launch cadence increase year on year. Keep in mind that this number looks really good because they had a flight anomaly in Q4 last year, or Q4 last year, which did take out quite some launches until they found out what was happening. Then they did 2 missions in 24 hours from 2 hemispheres, the world first, and that's correct. Not even SpaceX has done that. And Rocket Lab is the only of 3 US launch providers to have successfully launched to orbit in 2025. Preferred launch for constellations. I mean, the only point here that I can say is that for me, it's a super bullish sign that the existing customers keep ordering more and more launches. And to me, it shows like a product market fit, that they really like found a market niche where they can sell the electrons. Very bullish sign for the future. What do you guys think?
Yeah, definitely worth noting that this is kind of where, like when Matt and I, because we were streaming a little bit earlier before you were able to join us, Vince, but when we first saw this, I was kind of confused because we knew about 4 IQPS launches, and for there to be 8 here, that was kind of news, without the announcement really. So that was good to see as well.
Am I correct? I was looking at the average sales price for Electron this quarter, and it feels like it was very low for this quarter.
Let me just double check. It was not as high because we're still flushing out. Like we had, what launches did we had? We had, I should know this. I just went over it yesterday. There's a couple that were from 2021.
Oh, you mean the contracts themselves? Yeah.
Yeah, so there was a couple that were just signed a long time ago, so they had a lower average selling price. But
I think it was in the mid 8s from what you said, either pre-stream or.
Oh yeah. No, it was record. It was record ASP for Electron revenue. It was like barely beaten by they barely beat Q4 of 2023, but it was record ASP for Electron.
But when you say ASP, you mean like the ones that they sold not the ones that they delivered in the quarter, or
no, the ones they delivered.
Because if my notes are correct, we had 42.4 million launch revenue, and there was 6 launches, right? And then if you divide
five
back,
launches.
that's why.
Yeah.
That's why. You see, that's why.
That's why they pay him the big bucks, man. He knows the numbers.
Yeah, exactly. That is 8.4 million. Yeah,
didn't you read between the lines, Vince? No, I'm just kidding. The reference to Scott's video that you guys need to watch.
All right. I did watch it, but yeah. So here we go. Leader in the hypersonic test market. So 2 HASTE launches in just 21 days in Q4. 5 more HASTE missions on the manifest, and selected by Kratos to serve on the newly extended 1.4 billion Mach 2B 2.0 hypersonic test program over a 5-year period. So as long as this program doesn't get dodged, we are good. Why do you guys think that this is not in the backlog? Do you think it's because it's not?
It was January 7th.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's just too soon. I don't think anything's been definitively signed yet.
Yeah, I think they announced it January 7th. Maybe it's not been signed, but I anticipate you'll see something in the first quarter. And same thing with the NASA launches, but we'll talk about that, I guess, when we get to Neutron. But I think staying on HASTE, I think hugely important, right? It's those Q4 launches were the first since the Scouts Arrow back in June of 2023. So the first in over 18 months. So very important. And then with that, not only that, but you have 4 customers that have been sitting in the wings. So now we've delivered for 2 out of those 4 customers, from what I understand. And now you have the Kratos opportunity as well. So at least I think it's only 2 customers that have been served out of those 3. Scott, you're better at that stuff than I am. But maybe they've served 3 different customers at this point. But either way, I think it's starting to grow legs of its own. And as you see, there's 5 more on the manifest, particularly for the Department of Defense. Who knows what else is going to show up with respect to Kratos and the cadence that they want.
As far as the customers, there's been 2 for sure, maybe 3. One of those launches we weren't quite sure exactly who it's by, but yeah, this year, I guess we should see either 2 or 3 Leidos. One is just listed as U.S. government customer, and Hypersonic should be literally maybe any day. So.
Yeah, literally. And I think the thing that I'm like most on the edge of my seat for is like they haven't stated this. We've had conversations with them, of course, but we know that HASTE can be something that it doesn't necessarily have to be launched from LC1 or LC2. And so my curiosity is when. So like, is that a 2025 thing where we're going to see it potentially launched from a different launch pad, or is it a 2026, 2027 thing? And then also, I don't know. And I think one of the things I want to clarify with because it's a hypersonic, does that limit it to only the US or US bases around the world? But I guess at the same time, we've also been in communication with Australia, if I remember correctly, for HASTE stuff as well. So I'm kind of curious if it's like specific allies of the United States, because a lot of that stuff can be pretty proprietary for defense reasons.
I think it was on a conference with Adam Spice in the past, we'll call it past month or so, but he did mention, I think his phrasing was, I think he mentioned friendly nations is where we could also see HASTE. So I'd assume that to be Five Eyes, like, including Australia is my best bet with that subsidiary set up in 2023, I think it was.
Do you guys think that for like they can change the launch pad of the Haste without building out like a full launch pad, like that they do some simplified version? Because to build out a new launch pad, it would like, does it make sense to only do it for Haste and just for a few launches? Like if you know that there is like 3 launches from here.
Like in New Zealand, you mean? Like could they just set that up and do Haste out of there? So what you're
No,
asking?
I mean, like if they would go to Australia, but they would do like a temporary pad, right? Like for some reason, for the orbit, it would be better to test in Australia, and then they just, I don't know, send some trucks, and then they have the transporter erector or whatever on the truck, and then because I'm just saying, like setting up a new launch pad is quite an investment, as also Peter has mentioned it in one of his interviews, and then you wouldn't want to do it if you don't have continuous launches, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess we will see if it makes sense or not. Cool. We go over to the next one. So Neutron. This is the year of Neutron. So thousands of constellation satellites need a ride to orbit in the next 5 years. Demand for national security launches continue to grow. Right now, there are a few launch options, and I would say there's only one launch option. Neutron will unblock this bottleneck, and as we plan to do it on a rapid timeline, Neutron is also critical to us launching and operating our own future satellite constellation. And here's the thing that had the market really freak out, or I guess one of the things that had the market freak out. Debut launch scheduled for second half of 2025. Maybe I go through the whole Neutron section and then we start commenting on it. What do you guys think?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. So Neutron launch site nearing completion, scheduled to be open for operations in Q2 2025. So that's a super good sign. Hungry Hippo comes alive. There was a video that they released where they showed how this Hungry Hippo actually operates. Flight hardware in test. So here's another sentence, guys, which I want to come back to. 100% of Neutron flight hardware is in production. Once qualification is complete, next step is full vehicle assembly and integration. Here's another line. Structures being produced in parallel for second launch vehicle. Archimedes engine testing intensifying. There is more and more. There is a new landing platform called Return on Investment, which I think is kind of hilarious that they named it that for Adam Spice. Because I guess he was like, where is all this money going? Adam, it's going for return on investment. Okay, then I can approve it, you know? Probably the logic there. So it says maximizes Neutron's performance for missions with high energy requirements, supports rapid scaling of Neutron beyond first launch. So they're again confirming that the first launch is just going to be with no recovery. And this ship is expected to enter service in 2026. Here's another interesting chart, road to launch. And again, I didn't notice it during the live stream, but obviously here you have the blue one, which is currently underway. So they're already working on this. And you can see stage 1 flight hardware, stage 2 flight hardware, the Hungry Hippo qualifications. And basically the white one is that they have not even started yet. And that's basically just the vehicle integration. It's these ones here. Stage 1 static fire, stage 2 static fire, wet dress rehearsal, and launch. Yeah. So what do you guys think? How catastrophic is it that the launch was moved? And based on all this data that is given, do you feel like there's no water on the base and we're slipping into 2026?
I mean, I don't think that delay was news. Like from the moment that it was announced as like mid 2025, that in my mind, I just go straight to like net July 1st. And that by definition is the second half of 2025. So seeing that and seeing people be like, it's a delay, I'm like, I feel like I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum now, where I'm like, this is what I've been saying, is that it's second half of 2025, and before people would perceive me as being bullish or saying it was a delay, but that's like, I don't think that was news. But as far as the barge, I mean, cool name, but I saw a post from Dave, and he mentioned that it's a little odd that they bought it now, considering that it's just going to sit around, kind of being a net drag for the next 1, maybe 2 years. And I was going to jokingly comment, but I didn't want it to be taken too literal. But I'm like, maybe we should put it to use and go fish out some electrons. I don't know. I'm sure it's way too big for that to even make sense. But I mean, maybe. Would you need a smaller ship? How big of a crew would you need? What's the fuel consumption? I don't know what the logistics of that ship. I haven't looked into how big it is compared to that. I think the other one's called a DP Sea Worker or something Sea Worker. But let's go fishing.
I guess you also don't know. I mean, that was a rendition. That wasn't an actual photo of it. Ships take time to build. So it could be something that they're building from scratch, or maybe they're getting it retrofitted. But either way, you kind of have to have it prepared. And, while we will be, at least from what we know, we will be soft landing the first launch. The second launch, as we now kind of hear, the structure is already being built, the engines are already being built for it. So I wouldn't expect it to be too far away, within 6 months to 9 months, likely, of that first launch. So if that's the case, then, you kind of need to get moving on a ship earlier rather than later. And I don't think it's going to be too much of a drag. I'm not sure how much or how big the barge is, but there's that piece. But overall, I'm with you, Scotto. I kind of heard no earlier than, and yes, I was optimistic that maybe that would mean a July 1st launch or, or early launch. But as we all kind of noted, these timelines, while still are a drag, there's nothing, in my opinion, that is massively behind, right? We've seen pictures of what the LC3 looks like, right? And that it's getting closer. We've seen the Hungry Hippo fairings in tests now. We've seen stage 1. We've seen stage 2. So in that case, well, maybe not the stage 1 in its entirety, but we've seen stage 1 tanks. We've seen a lot of these things already in action. Maybe they haven't been appropriately qualified, but it's not like we haven't seen any of these pictures before. Had we not seen any of these pictures before of all these tanks and the engines and stuff of the like, I'd be kind of sitting there like, are these guys trying to pull wool over our eyes and, not necessarily, give us true information? But in reality, they've been providing pictures as they have them. And, here we are about 9 months post first photos of Archimedes breathing fire. And I think we're still close, in my opinion, in terms of being able to get it done. Are you going to be able to get it done in the next 4 months? I think that's a stretch, and that's why, I think the no earlier than piece is still in hold. But hey, I wouldn't be surprised if everything literally went perfect from here to now, where they would get an opportunity to do it in July. But I think they're anticipating where they are with the qualifications they have, and maybe some stretch in some of the timelines. That's where they're saying, it might be a couple months, maybe 3 months where they need it. So that would push it, I guess, until late August, early September. And I think that's about when I have mine. I know some people said October, but anyway, it's not important who's right, but that's just my thought process. I don't think it's too far off.
Yeah, I mean, for me, what was really funny is, we did this survey at the beginning of the year, like our predictions for Rocket Lab, and literally none of us, including Dave Chi in the panel, was thinking that the rocket would launch on time. So I feel like on this earnings, there was nothing new that came up. And on the contrary, when I was looking at this, I'm really confident that they're very, very close to launching, because 100% of Neutron is in production. If you look at the things that is left, that they haven't started yet, is basically the vehicle integration, the static fire on stage 1, stage 2, and then the wet dress rehearsal, and then the liftoff. Those are the only things that is white, and everything else they have started. Obviously, we don't know which stage they're at. But when I was reading it, I was like, wow, this is really, really like in the finish line, and you can almost like see the launch, taking place. And then the fact that the second one is being parallelly produced is super bullish for the kid. Yeah, concurrently. Sorry, thank you for correcting me. So that the second one is being concurrently produced, it's just super bullish for their cadence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think if everybody remembers, I mean, I would love somebody that actually studies this way more than I do, right? I'm just an enthusiast. I'm no expert. The New Glenn, if I remember correctly, we saw the static burn about a month or two ahead of launch. Actually, it might have been maybe 3 months or so. So if we're sitting here, let's just say in like the June, July timeframe, and we have a static fire, wet dress rehearsal, etc., of the entirety of the vehicle, then I feel like we're really close, right? I mean, if you get to that point and they say, "Hey, that actually qualified, that was good," then you're looking pretty good in that respect. And the same thing with Starship. Like we're only 18 months past Starship, and it seemed like that. Once they did the static fire for that, one, they destroyed the pad, if you guys remember, so they had to fix that really quickly. But once they actually, or maybe it was after first lift that they destroyed the pad, but after the first static fire, it turned around pretty quick within a month or two, and it launched. So I think that those are the real milestones where you need to be like, hey, we haven't seen this yet. All the other stuff, I feel like it could, in my opinion, show up tomorrow or be done tomorrow. They've already been qualifying the engine, right? We know they can send a lunar lander to the moon. I'm sure they have the flight mechanics programs ready to go. We've already seen in the video that they posted the same day on Thursday, the Hungry Hippo fairings kind of in action, right? So like these things I think are not far away, as you stated, concurrently being done. And really, I think it's when do you get to the full vehicle integration piece? When do you get the regulatory approval? And I feel like those are the big things you'll see. Once you get the vehicle fully integrated, I feel like everything else is going to fall in line very quickly.
So I just want to say here, I quickly went to ChatGPT. Question was, how many days after successful wet dress rehearsal did the New Glenn launch? If ChatGPT doesn't hallucinate, it says December 19th, 2024 was the successful wet dress rehearsal, and the rocket was launched 16 January 2025, which is 28 days after successful wet dress rehearsal.
Cool.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so now an interesting thing. We can I think we can take it here. Scotto, you did a video where you were able to calculate out the average sale price of Neutron, and you actually came to a number that I didn't really like. And I was rewatching the video, and I'm like, okay, where can I poke holes in this? And then I was thinking to tell you that it's like, yeah, the backlog can come from somewhere else also. Like it's a good hypothesis. I can't speak. It's too late. So it's a good theory, but maybe the backlog comes from somewhere else. But then I found on the presentation that they themselves are detailing how the backlog changed, and they do say that they added the 2 Neutron launch contracts. So it very much feels like your numbers are correct. So can you tell us about what's the number, and should we sell the stock 20% down on Monday when it opens?
No. I mean, yeah. So within Q4, we had the 2 Neutrons that were signed, and then we had the Aurora Tech launch that was signed as well. Now, there is a bit of like mental gymnastics as far as the Aurora Tech price, but what's that term when they have like a fast turnover for the launches? Not
responsive launch, or
responsive launch, yeah. So the other one that we had was the eSpace launch. It was from signing to launch in 10 weeks. This one's going to be from signing to launch in, I think, 16 weeks is what it ends up being. So it's not quite as responsive, but it is still a responsive launch. eSpace, by comparison, seems to be about the $9.2 million mark. So if you assume that this one is 8.5 million, that would leave only the neutrons. You divide that by 2, and you're going to arrive at 46.9 million per Neutron. So if you wanted to poke holes in that, you could say like, yeah, maybe the ASP for Aurora Tech is quite a bit less. Like if it was 7.5, but then it's still, each Neutron is still going to be 47.4 million. So it's still either way below that the $50 million mark for each. But like I said in the video, it's like I equate this to just being a bulk order discount, even though it wasn't a large bulk order. Like, sometimes we see 5, even up to 10 bulk orders or bulk launches ordered at one time. I think this is just kind of a discount for being an early customer, for ordering more than one launch, that kind of thing. So nothing to worry about, in my opinion.
So the number you got was 46 million.
Yeah, like right around 47, we'll call it 47.
Okay. As opposed to the 50 to 55 that was planned.
Yeah.
Okay, Matt, any reactions to this?
No, I think it'll come down over time.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, sometimes you have to get the first customers through the door. And they did say that the first launches will possibly have some discounts because it's riskier. And I feel that, the Electron had a curve that it started on a very low price and then it keeps going up. And it actually would make sense that the Neutron would follow this curve. And the more the vehicle is tried and tested and safer, it's also more easier to ask for more money.
100%. Yeah.
All right. So now we go into space systems. So they had the live missions underway that we talked about, both the Varda landing that just landed a few days ago and the NASA lunar lander mission, which is in 9 hours, guys. So then Rocket Lab is advancing the US defense. They are talking about the SDA Tranche 2 transporter layer, and they are done with the preliminary design review, whatever that means. I'm not a rocket engineer, and Victus Hayes is going good. Then they reiterate that they have made a family of spacecraft with different names. Not everything is called Photon anymore. And here is a really big one: introducing Flatellite, low-cost satellite designed for mass manufacture and tailored for large constellations. Scalable, resilient, high-power, secure, low latency, high-speed connectivity, and remote sensing capability. Ideal for national security, defense, and commercial markets. So I have done a few videos where I was speculating that Rocket Lab is possibly going to be giving a service like Constellation as a service, where some branches of the military or private big companies want their own communications, and they come to Rocket Lab and they say, we want this service, please provide the constellations, and we just pay for the service monthly. And they are giving, it's looking like my conspiracy theory could be correct. More than just a new product to serve our customers' ever-evolving needs, a bold strategic move toward being truly end-to-end space company, operating our own constellation and delivering services from space. So what do you guys think of Space Systems 2024 Rocket Lab?
I mean, it's interesting. I'm just kind of like doing some math in the background as far as what we could expect. Each of like what we see in the picture, there are 16 Flatellites in that one Neutron fairing. Rocket Lab currently sells each satellite for like 20 to 25 million a piece. And if these are supposed to be lower cost to build, like even if they were selling for 15 million per satellite, you're looking at $250 million just for that setup right there, not including the launch. For Rocket Lab to build, that would be if Rocket Lab was building these for themselves, you'd probably expect them to be built for like 170 million a pop, I suppose. Not sure what to do with those numbers, but just some food for thought. But yeah, probably looking at like $250 million for a customer to order what you see there.
That's pretty good with a 50 million launch.
Without, so yeah, it'd be like 300 million including launch, I suppose.
That would be almost this year's like I mean, okay, between this year's and last year's, but yeah, because we did 433. So like 1.5 launches of these would be all of this year's revenue.
Mm-hmm.
That is pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought. I never thought about that, but yeah, that's it doesn't sound too far off. And then also you have to think like, will Rocket Lab utilize it on their own and just sell the service, or will they wait for people to come to them? I guess that's the question that I'd be curious about. Would they rather partner with people to sell directly? Have people like, let's say the Department of Defense come to them to buy however many satellites themselves, or would they just launch them and say, use excess capital to say, all right, no, we already have these up and running, feel free, and then just turn them on. I don't know. That's a thought that I need to kind of sit with.
Yeah. Okay, do you guys know, like, if we compare, like, what are the satellites what do the satellites cost in other constellations? Like, do you guys have any data on this?
Somewhere. I think it's, I'll say no for now. I'll see if I can bring something up, but
let me see if ChatGPT can help.
I want to say Black Sky had something like, and it was like a 30 to 35 million, but I don't know why that's ringing a bell, but
I'm seeing for Planet Labs, they have their Super Doves, which are like quite small satellites. They're like 10 kilograms. Those are like 250,000 each to make. The Pelican, actually, this would probably be a closer comparison to what we're looking for. Like 150 to 200 kilograms for weight. Planet Labs' Pelican are 3 million a pop. And I think SpaceX's are around 1.5 million. Someone can correct me in chat.
Yeah, I found the same on ChatGPT. Amazon Kuiper, it says up to 16. No, yeah, it doesn't have a number. ASTS Space Mobile, 16 to 18 million per satellite. Yeah. So it's really, really, like, it varies really much. And Sir Peter Beck didn't say that it's going to be a cheap satellite, right? He said that it will be very fast to deploy. Like, that's their edge.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Adam, very much, by the way. Cool. So, I mean, I think that this part in the earnings was like, I don't know. I feel that we just glossed over it. And for me, this is like half the constellation announcement, because like now you see it stacked in Neutron, you see the form, and basically they just need to put the sensor or whatever they want to do onto this little thing, and then you have your own constellation.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if they, like, Peter just went on, and I think this is when they hands over to Adam, if I remember correctly, right? So I wasn't sure if he just wanted to just like say, hey, we're working on it, here it is, introducing, and then just say, like, let's just move on. So that way he wasn't expected to explain a lot of things that he probably can at the moment. Like, not to say that he hasn't thought them out, but probably a lot of things that are proprietary that they don't want to have out into the open at this moment, while they still have maybe potentially a competitive edge. That's me speculating, of course. I don't know anything when it comes to this particularly, but I was a little bit disappointed we didn't go into a little bit more depth about it. It was mostly just, it kind of felt like, hey, maybe you can order it, or hey, maybe we're going to provide this ourselves, but this is what it is. To me, I wanted to hear a little bit more details, and hopefully we'll be able to dive a little bit deeper and find out where the boundary is if we get to talk to the gentleman this quarter.
Yeah. All right. So now we go into finances, very, very interesting. So review of revenue and gross margins. So there's a lot of number I don't necessarily want to read out, but I updated my Rocket Lab table, and they have had the highest GAAP gross margin and highest non-GAAP gross margin that I have ever recorded in the table. They have had one time a little bit higher GAAP gross margin in no, what am I saying? I'm so sorry. They had the highest GAAP and non-GAAP gross margin, which for me, again, is one of these hidden details that just shows how efficient this company is. And yes, they are spending a lot of money on Neutron, but behind that spending is a really efficient and basically almost profitable company. Yeah, we go into their backlog. I think this was sort of a disappointment that the backlog didn't really increase or was very slightly increasing. Then here's a guidance for next year. We expect approximately 50% of our ending Q4 backlog to be recognized within 12 months, with the remaining 50% to be recognized beyond 12 months. So the 50%, I have it written up here, is 2025, $533.5 million. And if we take that as a guidance, it's a 22.19% increase like year over year for the year. And that is not as sexy, I think, as it should be. But that's obviously because Neutron is coming in 2026, and it will speed up again in 2026. What did you guys think about their finance numbers? And yeah,
we'll get to the gap stuff and the expenses in just a moment, and gross profitability. The backlog piece, I think, I wasn't expecting much. I was expecting the two launches, obviously, that were signed up for by the confidential customer for Neutron. And then I was just going through, you're not going to see the Kratos numbers in here. You're not going to see the NASA Varda numbers in here. So my hope is with that, you're able to offset a good amount of the first quarter earnings, and you actually start to see some growth. So to me, just based on the fact that you were able to push through $132 million of revenue, that gets mostly offset by the fact that you have two launches in there, and then you have some other, two Neutron launches in there. So that's hopefully close to 100 million. And then you had a few signups of additional work. So my thought process is it's not done. I would be disappointed if we ended next quarter, the first quarter in May, when we have the earnings report, at about 1.1 billion. Because to me, I think you'll have two more Neutrons at a minimum, maybe even more. Then you also have a laundry list of additional Electrons that have been signed on, coupled with the Kratos. So to me, if that backlog doesn't increase to at least 1.2 plus next quarter, I'd be pretty disappointed. But to me, I think if you were to look in from October to December, there wasn't much other than, I think, the IQPS 4 launches that they signed on. And Scott, you're better at this stuff, so maybe I'm missing something as well.
Yeah, the way that I'm kind of looking at this, because they have done this like kind of indirect backlog guidance for several quarters now. If we look at what was guided for like 1 year ago for 2024, they ended up beating that number by 1.7% only. And that was with a ton of slippage. Like a bunch of customers obviously were moved out of the year. Like we went from 22 launches originally planned to 16 in the end, and they still like beat that guidance, if you will. And just kind of looking at the manifest that they have for 2025, assuming that they're like, I assume that there's not going to be as much slippage going forward, because like it's not like a lot of new customers. Like there's a ton of Synspective who kind of know what they're doing by now. Black Sky's in there as well. Lidos, like a lot of entrants who aren't like it's not the first rodeo. So it's not like a lot of new customers who are kind of not knowing what to expect in terms of last minute hiccups. So I think we can pretty much lock that 533 million in, and probably I think it's safe to say we're going to see more of that than what's there currently.
Do you think like by 10% more, or like what's your? But by the way, I really recommend everyone who's here to check out Scott's latest video. There you can see exactly what he's talking about. Because if I remember from your video, like the average beat that they have been doing lately is like 2-3% higher than what they're guiding for, no?
Yeah, the past few have been decent beats, like 7, 10, 2, 9, and 4%. Actually, some of those are kind of getting into 2025 as well. So those are just estimates, but like, yeah. Usually they beat by a few percent at least.
Yeah.
But keep in mind, that's with that slippage, which I expect there to be a little bit less of as a percent for launch.
Yeah. So that means that their growth rate is going to be between, if they do what they guided for, is 22.19%. And if they do, let's say 5% more, what would that be? It's a bit late. 50, 25 more, 560. That would be 28%. That's pretty decent. 28% growth rate. Cool. Okay, so just want to point out one more thing here, which was very surprising to me, and that is, you guys know when you read the P&L, it has the operations section, and then it has sorry, now I'm mixing it up. When you look at the cash flow statement, so that one has an operations section, an investment section, and an interest section, if I'm not being mistaken. But the point is, it has different sections, and the first one is purely the operations of the business, like how did the cash flow change purely on the operations of the business, because you can raise money in a company by selling new shares or taking a bank loan, and then that should not be mixed together with the operations of the company. And basically they are saying here that their GAAP operating cash flow was minus $2.4 million. And when I saw that number, I was like, damn, that is really close to break even as a company. And that is a GAAP number. So taking into account stock-based compensation. So I was really, really pleased with that number. Unfortunately, they do explain it here that they got like a big prepayment, or like it was a very lucky set of events. So I don't know if it's sustainable, but I feel like we're still investing in Neutron. We know that the cadence is going up. Neutron is coming online. I feel just we're so close to being profitable. So am I like overplaying this, or you guys see the same thing as I see here?
I mean, yeah, I'm seeing something similar. Like I wouldn't expect profitability anytime soon, like whether you're looking at like free cash flow or cash from operations or like anything like that. I don't think we're profitable for at least a year, probably. Well, I'll say at least a year. But I mean, it is good to see being that close to break even for cash from operations, but yeah, still a ways to go.
Okay, cool. And then the last thing is the 2025 Q1 revenue outlook. So they are expecting an increase on both space systems and the launch revenue. They're expecting to get between 117 to 123 million, and based on my calculations here, let me see if I can find it. So that's a 29% increase year over year, but quarter over quarter we are decreasing 7.69%. So that guidance obviously could be better. Yeah, I don't know. Do you guys have any comments on the finances and projections? And yeah, what do you guys think?
I go into it a little bit more on the video, but my takeaway from the revenue is, like, especially with the year-on-year increase for launch revenue, this infers that we're going to see 3 launches throughout March. So that's kind of my key takeaway. As far as space systems, I'm not too sure, because I mean, if you look at a year ago, there's only 60 million. So I assume we'll see a hit there, but it's still it's going to be more than 60 million. Obviously, I have them at 82 million for space systems, but that's a bit of an estimate. But for the launch services, yeah, I think we're going to see 3 launches right away here.
I think the thing that I was most happy about for fourth quarter, not most happy, but from a financial perspective, is the continued increase in gross margins. And I hope that just continues. I recognize that there was 5 launches in the fourth quarter that may have assisted with gross margin, specifically on the launch side, that may have lifted it to the mid 30% on a non-GAAP basis. So I just hope that continues. Even if it stays above 30, 32%, even if you're only getting, say, 3 or 4 launches in this particular quarter, my hope is that it continues to stay above 30. And that's kind of the benchmark that I'm kind of seeing going forward. And what I hope is once you start to get some of the roll off of some of the legacy space contracts, as Adam continues to talk about in the Q&A section, that you'll get closer to a mid 30% non-GAAP gross margin pretty consistently. But in terms of going to Q1, I think 4 quarters in a row of over $100 million is very promising. And I think if this is the lowest quarter, then you can only can see potential for higher revenues going into the second half of the year. I do think, just based off what they've noted, that there's supposed to be over 20 launches this year. That'll be an increase of it at a minimum of 25% if they hit 20 plus launches in terms of launch cadence year over year. And with that, hopefully that means that you'll be able to experience way more launches in Q2, Q3, Q4, coupled with Neutron. So hopefully on a good pathway, hopefully, fingers crossed at this point, to crossing over 600 million in revenue generation for the year. My hope is that it's closer to 650, but it seems like launch is slowing compared to what they had pre-SPAC or actually the kind of merger. But that's fine. We've seen that in quite a bit of just based off of manifest and what shaped up in 2024. But my hope is with that noted, that they get to a better place where customers are more prepared. Because to me, I think 117 to 123 is great. I'm a little bit upset about seeing the EBITDA loss increase, but at the same time, I know they're getting prepared for Neutron, so you can't be too upset with an additional $10 million in spend for the quarter with that. So yeah, if they're able to get on the high end of gross margins and have a good second, third, and fourth quarter, I don't think that this one will be a black eye. I think it'll just be another stepping stone of $100 million quarter, fourth in the row.
All right. Do you guys know what Curtis means here? I guess I'm the only one thinking about the $2 million in M&A and a flat set.
I think there was an uptick in legal fees that were, I think it was mentioned on the call. I'm trying to dig around myself too. There was something mentioned about increased legal fees in reference to merger or acquisition. So maybe we're getting something soon.
I remember hearing that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was in one of these here. Here, G&A, GAAP SG&A expense increased primarily due to increases in IT outside services, legal outside services related to non-recurring transition costs. I mean, it doesn't say acquisition, it says transition cost, but could be the acquisition.
Oh, someone's saying not that.
I don't know if someone else can find another one that we missed. The audience can.
There's an M&A mentioned somewhere, whether it was vocally spoken or elsewhere. I think it was in the call. If
sorry, non-recurring transaction costs. It's guys. I had 5 days when I was working 13 hours on each day, and I was so gone today, the whole day. I needed to rest, so I'm resting tomorrow. It's to the point I can't read English anymore.
But in terms of the price action, I'm hearing people, or at least seeing people talk about it in the chat. I think where price action kind of comes in is, I think when you have algorithms reading a lot of this stuff and making rash decisions based off of numbers, they want to see revenue going up quarter over quarter sequentially. They want to see things going up on an annual year-over-year basis as well. And so while you're getting the year over year, you're not getting the sequential growth versus like what we saw in the fourth quarter. We saw really good sequential growth by, I think it was like 20% or something like that, 15, 20%. So in terms of that, good on the fourth quarter, not so good in the 1Q guidance. And so I think that partly is part of the reason why. And then also I think you just had a lot of people expecting just newcomers to the stock, hearing net June 30th or net mid-year, anticipating that by July 1 we were going to have a launch. And so to hear a little bit about how there's potentially 2 to 3 months of delay now being kind of forecasted for Neutron, maybe get some people a little bit spooked, coupled with the short report that was out there earlier in the week. I guess if you wanted to say that they won, you could say that. I mean, just based off the fact that they were able to get enough sell-off in the stock from a share price perspective to make it worth their while, and then potentially cover. I think you could state that their job is done. They moved the stock to a decent degree, or whether that was just underlying macro performance is another thing that could be done. It's not to say that Rocket Lab was working in isolation, right? A lot of other companies as well have retraced in price, but you could state that they won in that respect. And yes, it wasn't mid-year, but to my eyes, addressing the short report directly, by no means did I ever feel misguided or misled by the organization. They were very transparent from day one and has stated multiple times, as I wrote in my Seeking Alpha article, that it's rocket science, literally, and rockets generally have delays. And even still, if it was delayed, would be a record pace. And not only that, but they're doing it as cost efficiently as possible. We talked last week specifically around Blue Origin and the layoffs and the amount of capital that they're investing on an annual basis over there being the order of billions, not hundreds of millions. And with that, they're getting to launch just a fraction sooner than Neutron, right? And so with a record amount more employees, maybe not record amount, but multiple of employees comparatively to Rocket Lab. So in that respect, you have to realize that these guys are cost efficient, and with that, they're able to execute very well. And the fact that they're even on track when something like Blue Origin was years behind is pretty phenomenal. To be able to say, hey, what was it, 2021 timeframe? Hey, we're going to be building something huge, and actually turn it around and get it up in the air within a 3 to 4 year time horizon. That's pretty impressive.
Also, Space Ghost and Jacob, they posted that quote. It's so they're talking about SG&A, and I guess this would be Adam speaking. We reported non-recurring transaction costs of 2.2 million in Q4, owing to a step up in corporate development activities, including advancing a robust pipeline of M&A opportunities.
Oh, yeah.
Opportunities, so maybe more than one.
Yeah, that is interesting. I mean, when Adam was on the interview with us, I think he said it when the camera was not rolling, that it's so good that the stock price went up, but it also means that other company stocks also went up. And maybe with the correction now that we're having, like, maybe some doors open up for them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, cool, guys. I think that was the earnings edition. I don't know if you guys want to say anything else. these are the conferences to look out for. I'm trying to arrange my life so I can be a lot more on YouTube. I just need to finish an Airbnb project that I'm on. And then most probably I will be live streaming or re-recording these. Yeah, what do you guys think of this quarter? I know both of you were probably panic selling when the stock was dropping, and yeah, you were asking for daddy to hold you in the hands because you were crying. So tell us, what do you think is going to happen now?
I don't know. I mean, overall, I think earnings at face value was like mediocre, but I think when you do a bit of digging, I think there's a lot more to derive. Before we wrap up, I do want to ask you guys, because I know this is something that Jacob and I have talked about in the past in reference to like Haste being a responsive vehicle, if like in terms of the Iron Dome is really what I'm getting to, because Rocket Lab did mention like, oh, there's a bunch of opportunities for Iron Dome, but like when you see videos of Iron Dome, it's like, oh, there's a missile coming, send a missile. That needs to happen like immediately. Whereas for the Electron, it needs like 24 hours to set up, and like at that point, do you think that they're referencing, I guess, more like Flatellite in terms of observation for the Iron Dome? Or like, surely they're not talking about the Electron being an interceptor unit, right?
Yeah, it cannot be, as you said, it cannot be an interceptor unit.
I think it could be. I mean, I think it really just depends upon. I think it could be adjusted. I mean, it wasn't originally designed to be a Haste vehicle at all, and it's been redesigned to be able to do that. And you know, so in that respect, I think it could potentially be used for an Iron Dome like protective service. I don't think the intent is really to use it as a ballistic or anything of the like, but I think what it can do is within a couple hours, which is all the time really that you need, be set up and utilized to be able to get something within 100 or 200 miles if you set it up appropriately, to then utilize the ballistic as the second stage to either be offensive or defensive. I don't at this point think that they're going to use it for offensive. Everything I've heard so far has been defensive, and I just want to clarify that. But I think it could be something that is always readily on standby on specific strategic bases around the world, for assisting in that respect. But at that point, I'm not exactly sure with you, Scott, and what I've seen kind of done for an Iron Dome like protective service within Israel. It's more of like at that point shooting ballistics directly from the Earth's surface. So to actually have something like a Haste is where I'm kind of scratching my head for the Iron Dome service as well. But I don't know. We're a little bit bigger of a country than Israel is, so it's kind of like, do you need it because we have a bigger country or what have you? But I don't know everything fully fleshed out, but I think that we shouldn't look at. I think that that's part of what Victus Haze is for. Victus Haze is a 24-hour turnaround at any given notice. I think that that's just the start, right? It's probably for Victus Haze. I know it's a completely different use case, but I'm sure that could be a qualifier to say, hey, we can turn around things within 24 hours notice, get it up and running. You know, who knows? Those people that are competing in those sorts of contracts or potentially move on to the next stage to be able to help with some sort of Iron Dome. Now, once again, that's all speculative on my part, but I could potentially see it for that, or it could be where the whole MSR thing, right? We didn't really hear anything about MSR in this particular quarter, but we were all hyped up about it last year. I still think that there's a potential for MSR to come back as a second thing, but you know, it could be where we're trying to set ourselves up for that, and whether or not we actually end up getting it is a different story. It could end up being like MSR all over again, where, you know, it was kind of a non-event for us as a company. So I'm kind of curious where it goes from here, but I'm cautiously optimistic that Haste has a way longer wavelength use cases than we're giving it credit for. And I think from Adam's perspective, when he talked about it at the City Industrial Conference, he talked about the Minotaur, which I believe was a Northrop Grumman equivalent. It cost $50 million to launch. They launched it at a very infrequent cadence over the last 10 years. They weren't able to turn it around as quickly as they wanted to. So even if we have a hypersonic test bed for ballistics or something of the like, that is better than that at literally 20% of the cost, as we've kind of seen the Minotaur be 50 million. Haste is more like 10 million. And it's a lot more reliable from what we've seen than in that respect as well. You have a piece of business. It might not necessarily be the Iron Dome, but it at least will help. And I think that's part of the reason why we saw the Kratos thing. Really long answer, but I don't know. I don't know the answer, so I just have to say a bunch of stuff to hopefully make revenue start to show up.
And I'm seeing in the chat as well, like people are kind of assuming, like I'm kind of like going full 180 from like 5 minutes ago, because I feel like pretty much everyone here can agree that Earth observation is off the table. But if Flatellite is for this tracking, is that not Earth observation, or is that technically something different? Like, should we maybe be looking in that direction again, as far as like an acquisition of, like, Spires under duress?
Yeah,
Black Sky, is that on the table again?
I mean, to me, that's not Earth observation, because it's like I think it's like a military or like national security satellite or. I think that would be on the Also, Call Me Curtis is saying it's not really Earth observation. Okay. By the way, my phone died with the good internet, so I might be very choppy from now on.
That's fine. No, in terms of what I thought of so if you want to continue after my little speech here, Scott, we can turn it back to that. But in terms of the quarter, I thought it was on par for the course, but on par for the course for Rocket Lab means it's leagues ahead of pretty much most companies that I track. So I think I said the same the day of. The only thing I stated that I think I was a little bit disappointed was we didn't go into a little bit more detail about Flatellite. But everything else, par for the course from what I'm seeing. Am I a little disappointed there's going to be a month or two delay? And Neutron, yes, but that's more from like a personal standpoint rather than a logical standpoint. Kind of made me always think that was going to be the case, that we would probably in between 2 and 3Q. Between the end of 2Q and the end of 3Q is what I always thought the launch was always going to be for Neutron. That's what I've kind of relayed in my bet for earlier this year. But exciting to see that we're continuing to move. I'm curious to see what other contracts we're going to get throughout the year. But trying to think if there's anything else. Yeah.
I just want to say this is our yearly predictions that we did in the beginning of the year.
Oh, I did say July. Damn.
Yeah. But none of us thought that it was like June or like in the half of the year. Yeah,
I thought I said August. Damn. Maybe I just wanted it to be optimistic. I wished it into fruition.
No problem. Cool, guys. I think that's the show for today. Thank you so much for being here. It's always very interesting to go through earnings, and really appreciate that you guys were here and we could dig up the numbers. I mean, everybody finds different stuff. Like Curtis found this 2 million M&A cost, and Scott comes with his calculations, and everybody just adds to it, and it's fantastic to crowdsource the research. So we know more where our beloved company stands. So thank you again, and see you guys hopefully next week.
Yeah. See you guys next week.
Thanks, guys.